Hey folks, Quill18 here. What you're about to see is an interview I had with Simon Bradbury, the lead designer of Stronghold Crusader 2 over at Firefly Studios. In the background, you're going to see some footage from a very early beta demo build that was demonstrated at PAX. It is only a single, very small level, and should not be taken as representative of the final game. Enjoy! So, you were talking about, I guess, just Stronghold in general, how it's a bit of a builder series.
Yep. Stronghold's it's like a builder game, a cross between like a castle builder with a sim in it. So you manage your economy and your peasants. You tax people more, or feed them more rations. More people will come. You tax them. Sorry, you tax them less. They'll come. You tax them more, they'll go away. And then you obviously have to manage your housing and all that kind of thing. And it's lots of classic resource chains. And then on the other side, obviously, you build a castle with some of the stone you extract and the wood, and then you make weapons and you put troops on the walls and you fight the AI that are attacking you, or you make troops and siege camps and siege weaponry and you go out and you lay siege to other people's castles. So that's the basic stronghold mechanism, and it's just it's quite a lot in there. It's quite an involved type of RTS. It's not just like an RTS; it's an RTS and a builder. And then Crusader comes along and it adds another layer on top of that. So whereas the original Stronghold, the vanilla Strongholds, are pretty much around building a castle and defending it, or attacking a castle, usually one castle, yours or theirs. With Crusader, we try and replicate the kind of multiplayer experience. Obviously, it has multiplayer, but we kind of throw in a load of AI personalities who have a play style and a build style. And you and one or two or three or four or five, six or seven AI characters will build their own castles in their own areas and estates and do that. So that gets added on top of the basic Stronghold code, and the idea is to kind of you play through skirmish trails whereby we set it all up and they get increasingly more difficult, or you set up the kind of custom game you want to play. I mean, it was kind of led into by, I think, our love of the original Age of Empires, which had once you played the campaigns, it had a simple skirmish setup there, which I played a lot of, and we thought, we can really add that skirmish play level onto Crusader, onto Stronghold.
Right, so maybe a
So
little bit
that's
more of
the
a
difference
focus.
with Crusader. Yeah.
Sorry, a little bit more of an emphasis on the RTS side of things, maybe a little bit more on the combat with moving troops around.
Yes, exactly. A little bit more on the RTS side, and also a little bit more on the strategic side as well, because certainly in Crusader 2, we've added in estates, which means that you sometimes you can take village estates, and these little village estates don't have castles, but they produce stuff, and you can capture them. And so, rather than just going straight for the jugular and going for the other guy, you might want to say, if there's only one village estate, you might take that first as a strategic kind of medium to long term goal, because that'll then send little carts with whatever it produces over your way. You might get extra wood, or you might get extra weapons.
Right, so I assume in something like a multiplayer settings, those are going to be pretty important points of contention, either the villages themselves or maybe attacking the carts.
Yep, so you certainly do both. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there'll be multiplayer games that won't have any village estates, but there'll be multiple. There might be some with just one, and it's a very powerful one, or there might be some with, say, just two. It might be a two-player map with 16 village estates in it. That it really allows us to kind of play with the basic multiplayer deathmatch game quite a bit, and add a kind of layer of strategy onto the top.
Well, so speaking of multiplayer, two-player maps, how big can the maps get in terms of number of players?
We The maps get a lot bigger than we've kind of had in the past. I mean, I think a smaller map gets to the gameplay more quickly, but a lot of fans have asked for bigger maps, so we've added those in. In terms of players, we limit it to 8, mainly because the actual just running, getting 8, or getting you would say 7 AI players, and getting them to build their castles, completely redo the nav mesh all the time, because unlike a lot of games, we have a completely on the fly nav mesh creation for all the pathfinding, and getting them to do all their decisions, runs good at 7, but as soon as you start getting beyond that for the AI, it's a lot of pathfinding goes on. So that's what we're comfortable with, and so that we've kept that as 8 players really.
Can you do things like, can you make teams, arrange something like that? Alliances, humans versus AIs, or 4v4, 2 2
Yeah,
2
no,
2?
no, exactly. I mean, I think what we've tried to do is basically get the tools in there and then allow lots of possibilities. So for sure, in the skirmish trails, that you're set up, you against an easy guy, you against two easy guys, then maybe an easy guy versus a hard guy, and then we can have any teams. So AIs are allied, you're allied. You can ask your allies to do things so that
Oh,
unlike
really?
Yep, yep. Unlike the previous one where there was very limited interaction, we've got a lot more interaction now. So you can ask your ally to send you goods. He'll ask you for goods, and you can kind of see his mood depending on how many times you ignore his, but ask him. And if he's got in a good mood, and different AI personalities start off with different default mood settings towards you, then they'll do things like send troops to help you. They'll go attack someone else, so you can try and coordinate attacks with them and things like that. But going forward, a big new thing for the game is not just being able to team up into different alliances, but we've also introduced co-op mode for the first time, which is basically allowing two, say, human players to be on the same, not just the same team, but actually in the same color. They're the same player. So it's kind of funky in that it allows you to, I could lasso the troops and send them over to the left. You could then lasso the troops and send them back to the right again.
Right. So you'd be building the same castle.
Exactly. And I could be building walls, you could be deleting them. It could go horribly wrong. But what we decided is we would put in some simple controls for that, and then just put it out there. And we're guessing that players will figure out the ways to kind of make the game style they like. So it could be in this game, I mean there could be a nomenclature there in the way that the game description is hosted in multiplayer, that you play left, I play right, or you attack, I build, or I'm an experienced player and I'll show you the ropes type. There's lots of possibilities there, I think, for the community to kind of like make it into whatever they want. So
Right.
rather than us be prescriptive with it, we thought we'd take the simple approach and just put some simple co-op rules out there. And then what we will do is, going forward, once we kind of see the way people use it, we'll support that by putting in code changes, whether that's interface stuff or something more fundamental that makes it easier to kind of play the way people seem to want to play.
Well, that actually is very cool. The that co-op mode, is it the same thing as you can play it any kind of way versus AI versus other players? Can you have one
Yeah.
person be paired up with someone else in co-op and then have someone solo on the other side?
Yep, absolutely. Some of the fun ideas we're imagining is, a really insanely hard map. Perhaps you're on a hill in the middle and you're surrounded by 7 AI players who are quite strong, and if you try and play it by yourself, you've just got no chance. We just make it very, very hard. So there will certainly be some maps that are just very hard to win. Ultimately, there's bound to be someone that will beat it, but they'll be designed for you and a friend to perhaps take that castle, and you take the east wing, and I'll take the west wing of the castle, and we'll see if we can hold out together against 7 AI opponents all throwing themselves up the hill, that sort of thing. And so we'll make maps specifically for it. But yeah, you can kind of play with it in any combination.
Great. Now, speaking of making maps, any chance there's going to be any sort of player creation tools, like the ability for us to make our own maps?
Certainly on the player creation tools, absolutely. We've always done that in the past, and we've ended up with millions of maps. Well, not very millions, but probably literally, you know, somewhere close to 100,000 plus maps around in the world that people have made. Pretty much every stronghold, someone always recreates the whole of Middle Earth, and apparently there are at least 100 locations. I mean, I can count about 10, but that might just be me. And then people will be doing, Game of Thrones, all that kind of thing. People do crazy stuff with it, and it's great to see. So, but this time around, I think what's nice is, because we're doing it with Steamworks, is we'll do the Steam Workshop integration, so that not only will you get kind of cloud saves and all that kind of thing, but in the past, you'd have to be, you'd have to know where the fan sites are to go and download those maps. This time around, they'll be there for everybody in the first instance. You can go and see them there, and you can rate them. And you can go and play the ones that everybody rates the best. So we definitely have it, but this time around, it'll be more integrated into the game from the start.
Does everyone have to have the maps pre-downloaded, or could I make or download a map and just host a game with it, and people can just join and it'll auto-download on the fly?
Yeah, no, we are accommodating the multiplayer side of that, so that if you want to make a multiplayer map, I think the plan is that it will send it across to you on the fly before the game starts. Is the way that it's going to work. So you don't have to download. If you've made a map, you download it and say, "Look, yeah, let's play this new map." It'll send it across to me before the game starts.
Are you going to be using the Steam Workshop for anything other than maps, or does the game support modding, new unit types, anything, recolors?
No, it doesn't really. I mean, it's not. It's it's, in that respect, it's an RTS, and it's got a lot of content in there. And it's not. You can't really skin your characters or anything like that, or give them new items. We're very much classic RTS style. We're not really a kind of squad-based type RTS or anything like that with heroes or anything.
Right. What do you think the length of the match is going to be? I'm sure that's going to be very greatly based on the size of the map, how many players are involved, the various villages and whatnot. But is there a sort of ballpark range you're aiming for?
Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways it's more like what's the minimum time. I think really is that we're not at a kind of 5-minute game. We're probably a minimum half an hour game, really. I would think, but you can go quite a long way, to the extent that we're looking to put in save games for multiplayer as well, so that you can kind of come back into it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And games can get quite strategic, and some of the best games actually are, I like personally, is you might have 4 guys on one side of the valley, and then you go down into a big valley with perhaps some of our new tornadoes in it, and on the other side are some hard AI characters, and then they can be quite hard matches, and you might not get to play it in 2 hours. You might need to come back to it, because there's, the average match, to go to your question, I think, an hour, I think is probably a good time to kind of put a set aside for a good kind of skirmish multiplayer game.
So we've talked a fair amount of the multiplayer or sort of open skirmish side. Is there a story-based campaign?
There is. There's a kind of obviously a tutorial, and then story-based historical campaigns which teach you the new units in Crusader. So if you're coming from Stronghold, then it'll teach you the new units. It'll teach you the new kind of elements that are particular to Crusader, like you can only build on oases. It will teach you a lot of the new buildings, but also the new in-game events, and which have now sometimes quite devastating effect on the map. Like we have tornadoes kind of going down certain areas, flinging people about, or we have locust swarms or lightning storms and things like this. And they teach you to kind of like, attack and defend in a kind of story-based campaign. But the meat really of Crusader are our skirmish trails, which are basically where we've kind of set up kind of skirmish games. You against one easy player, you against 2 easy players where you've got an advantage, all the way through to you against 7 hard players where you're in a slightly disadvantaged situation, and you play through different trails and see how far you can get. Basically, it's a real test of your skill, and those are the kind of meat of it. Because we wanted to add something different. Again, from the original Stronghold it's about attacking and defending missions. This is about skirmish play, really, first and foremost.
Right. Okay. So it seems to me that might be something that ties into maybe, do you have an achievement system? I mean, certainly being able to beat the 7 hard AIs and then showing that after the fact would be pretty noticeable. Is there a point-based system or yeah, Steam achievements, that sort of thing to
Yeah,
show
no,
off to other players?
absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely, we're using pretty much all of the Steamworks, goodness that we can. And I think for the first time we've got a proper achievement system in the game. Certainly, yep. Each trail will give you, if you win the first skirmish trail, I think you'll be like a skirmish yeoman. If you win the you go through all the trails, the last trail will give you skirmish king or something like that. I think is what we're using. But yeah, we've got a full set of achievements in there that will allow you to kind of gauge your progress. We've also got, what's nice is that we can kind of comment on the game as it goes through. So we're implementing in a minute a lot of genie speech, who will kind of act as a kind of the person that kind of looks at your progress and tells you, you are the third greatest lord. So it'll take, or you are the eighth greatest lord in the conflict, and it kind of ranks you whilst you're playing. It'll also rank you at the end of it and give you a score based on how well you did, and you'll get all the graphs showing you, everything from, where your rank across time to how much wood you made compared to everybody else, across the gameplay and things like that. So we definitely keep a lot of scores and a lot of ranks on top of the achievements which we're adding as well.
Oh, well, I'm a big fan of graphs, so I'm going to be enjoying to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love graphs.
Is everything symmetrical in terms of the sides? Obviously, with a Crusader type game, you would expect a sort of a Christian versus Muslim sort of campaign going on. And I did notice in the demo that certainly the sides look different. Do they play the same?
No, it's because we're not really a kind of like a faction type game in the sense of, like say Warcraft, where orcs for humans, and it's there's a balance there. No, basically you've got your kind of stronghold units, which are there roughly the same as the original stronghold, with a couple of changes, and then you have the mercenary post, which gives you the Arabic units. So the Arabic units tend to be a little bit more guerrilla-esque. So we've tried to make it a bit more interesting in the sense that you might have the assassins who can kind of climb up the walls and and do a little jump at the end, and so effectively the walls are invisible to them. You've got the horse archer who can ride around fast and shoot in any direction whilst moving. We've added the new Sassanid knight, who's now like effectively the boss of the open battlefield. He'll charge down the horse archers and anyone that gets in the way. Heavily armored knights. We've got the oil pot thrower, the slave, and the slave driver, a new unit. The whirling dervish, who's lightly armored but devastating if you get him into a big group of troops. He can kind of kill them all very quickly. The idea is that they've all got a specialization, rather than just a straightforward replacement, which we thought was not the way to go. We thought we'd go and add in the more specializations, and I think we've put a lot of thought to it, compared like how can we make it better than the original. And we looked at the original Crusader and went, well, these are the units everyone seems to use. These units didn't work quite as well, so we've taken those out and we've replaced them with something else, and we've tried to work really hard on a lot of the units to make them work as a specialist unit. And I think one thing we've used to make that work, and we've actually retrofitted these to some of the original units, is that we've given quite a few of them a power up. So for example, like your Sassanid knight, if his spear is up and is visually up, then he's ready to charge. And if you give him an attack move, he'll headlong dash to the enemy, and and gets a charge bonus when he hits, with a cloud of smoke, a dust going behind him. But he's ready because his spear's in the air, and when his spear's down, he's got an idle, which is spear down. He's not ready. So we've tried to give things power up and then make them. But it's not, you can see by looking at them on the map whether they're ready to go. Or like the man at arms has now got a spear which he throws, and if he's got a spear he can throw it. If he hasn't, he can't. We've been working very hard on those, and they sound really simple, but actually they take a lot of iterations through the game to actually get to that point.
Oh, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Do any of the units have activatable abilities, like explicitly that you have to fire off, or do they happen sort of automatically in the correct context?
Exactly, it's all automatic, correct context. Because again, I think the game is so there's so much to do, that I think if we made you go to the interface and kind of fire up a power, it would just be too hard to play, really. I think so. It needs to be right. I'm here. Oh, and I can look at those guys. They're ready. Right. I'm going to charge the macemen now, or the pikemen can kind of go into their kind of crouched stance where they dig their pike in. That's another new kind of power up we've added.
Oh, nice. Is there a cap to how many military units you can have?
There is, I think, in multiplayer, just because obviously, we have to put something in, otherwise, just for the sake of getting the game to run at the end of the day, if we didn't, you'd end up with people going, well, I've got 10,000 guys and the game won't run very fast. There needs to be something in there that that will mean that they won't completely completely run out of bandwidth on the CPU. So it's quite a high unit count actually. I think in most games with say a 4-player game, I think it's well over 100. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I think the overall pool is of units is probably close to 1,000 or something like that.
Okay, so the amount of units, the cap per player effectively will be dependent on how many players are in a game.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. It's right. So that's what we did with the original Crusader. I think we went right. We've got a pool of 1,000. If it's an 8-player game, then everybody gets 125, and in some ways it's quite nice. You knock players out, you get more units. So it naturally kind of ramps up, I guess, in a way like that. But you do need something in there, just otherwise you will run into some bandwidth issues.
Sure, of course. Also, having a unit cap can force people into conflict. You hit that cap, well, I may as well go and attack with the units that I've got now, and then I can just rebuild some more afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we are definitely about making units, letting them get killed, and making more units quickly. I think again that encourages conflict, which is good. At the end of well, it's not good, obviously, in the greater scheme of things, but certainly in the context of Crusader, I think what we didn't want is a game whereby nobody ever attacks and everyone just sits there, and then everyone's afraid just to lose, even to lose a few troops, because it gets for a very boring game. So I think if making troops is easy, people will expend them more easily, and you end up with a much more fluid, much more exciting game.
Sure. Now, speaking of being afraid of attacking, how do you balance the sort of offense versus defense? Because obviously, it's a castle building game at its core, and so it's all about building up these walls, these offensives, getting archers up on your walls, and you want to let people do that, but you don't want to make their fortresses completely impregnable. So how do you make it so that the fortresses don't fall over like they're made out of paper, but also don't stall out a game forever?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's because we've got this kind of game whereby it's about attacking building. There's obviously a tension there. I think in generally we tend to balance it in favour of the defender, because I think that has to be that way. Otherwise, no one would ever build a castle. So you need to know that I've put some walls down. I've got a tower here. I've got an advantage, and I think most of the advantage comes from for example, with ranged weapons. I mean, we're talking about people on the walls. You put archers or crossbowmen or rangers on the walls, as they get a range bonus. So whether they're on a wall or on a high tower or actually even on a cliff, the higher you are, the further you will fire. So that gives the castle a bonus. There are ways, what we've been working hard though is ways to kind of counter that. And so, for example, that they're quite vulnerable to getting a catapult attack onto a wall, because if a catapult hits a wall and gives you a nice big physics pile of rocks flying off of it, anyone on the top of that wall is going to go flying as well. And it is a bit easier this time around to take archers off walls. So you've got to just work. We've tried to make it so that you have to use more and different types of defenses. So you're using stuff in conjunction. You're kind of looking at who you're playing against, whether it's a human or an AI type, and figuring out, do I need more hidden pit ditches here, or perhaps some more of the temporary tower-mounted siege equipment would be better. Or do I need to kind of have an easy access out round the back so I can send a load of Sassanid knights to go and sweep those kind of cheap units away from the battlefield? We've made it so that if you want to have that good defense, you need to kind of start to play with more castle defenses, really. But overall, yeah, it's slightly more beneficial to defend than to attack. But I think in some ways that works well, because that way a good player will get a bit of a base going, and then go on the attack, but he won't immediately crush the opposition. I mean, I find if I play an RTS game online, a classic kind of attack RTS game like StarCraft or something like that, I think I'm doing great. I'm playing, I'm building it up. I'm going, I'm looking at my base, going, I'm doing pretty good. I'll be ready to attack soon, only to find out that my opponent, who's clearly a lot better than me, just with a minute later has completely swamped me because he's so much better than me.
Right, one giant attack just ends the game.
Exactly, and so what we didn't want to do is do that in Stronghold. I mean, possibly you could say, we're making a game that allows even me to, have a chance of winning a game. So, it kind of balances a little bit more in favor of the defender, of a bit more of planning. Obviously, with the right attack plan, strategy, you can and you will get in. But it makes it a little bit of a longer game, a little bit more of a we've both got big castles here, so you're going to need to be a little bit more clever to kind of win the game rather than just rushing.
Right. Well, speaking of skill differences, with the multiplayer component, do you have any intention to put in sort of matchmaking, ranking, so you get paired with people of similar skills? That might be harder to do in a game where you've got 8 players simultaneously as opposed to a 1v1. But is there anything like that at all?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know we're using Steam Works to do that, so I think potentially you can certainly play with your friends and things like that. So that'll be an easy one to do. I don't know, but I think if we haven't got it in at the get-go, I think that that is certainly something that we can and we will add. I mean, I think our plans for Crusader, Crusader is Crusader 2 is our first self-published title as a developer. All our previous games have gone through the auspices of a traditional publisher. So this is our first self-published game, and we've been giving it more time, making sure it's absolutely right when it comes out. And I think it's coming out, as we know as a developer, is not the end of the story anymore. It's the start in a way. So we plan to develop, not just kind of manage or patch or update. We plan to carry on developing stuff post-release. And that, even if so the idea of the kind of matchmaking would be something that probably needs a little bit more. If we haven't got it in already, and I really don't know at this point, then it probably needs a little bit of thought on it, and it would come in an update. So we will get it. It just might not be there on day one. That's all.
Okay. You just mentioned that you're sort of doing this more indie self-publishing style this time around. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Certainly, let's address. There was a bit of an issue at release with Stronghold 3 that a lot of people probably still have in their heads. And is this sort of self-publishing idea a way to work around that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we held our hands up at Stronghold 3. I mean, it wasn't. That is one of the downsides of working with the publishers, that they are the people that are choosing the release date, and we're contractually bound to it, and the publishers themselves have got then all sorts of pressures on them that why it needs to be out at a certain time, but we didn't have any control on it. It had to come out when it came out, and so it came out before it was ready. We spent a long time patching it afterwards, and trying to rebuild the damage that caused for us in a kind of PR sense, and we have to, that will be a hurdle for everybody this time around. So we just need to make sure that people get the game they deserve when it comes out this time. So yes, self-publishing has allowed us to kind of spend a lot longer on it. So we might not have done it as intensively, as fast as we might have needed to if we'd have been doing it with the publisher, and they're paying us certain advances and they need it at a certain time to match their financial quarters and things. So we've not done it as fast, but that's some ways that's a good thing if we can kind of do it a little less intensively, but a little bit more with a little bit more kind of thought. So it'll have been 3 years really since Stronghold 3, but this one will be a lot more accomplished than Stronghold 3 will be. It'll be it's already like loads faster. It's stable. It's with all those, we've had all those sorts of things done for a while. Now we're kind of polishing it as well, which is where we never got to with Stronghold 3 before that came out. But we also have to learn a lot of lessons in terms of how we do our PR and how do we get out, how do we, we're a kind of small developers, so how do we're obviously got we've got a brand that people know, but we still have to work hard just to kind of get our message across that it's coming and that it's good, and to try and persuade people to give it another shot.
One of the other things you were mentioning earlier is about just the idea of future support and maybe future expansions and DLC. And DLC is obviously one of those contentious topics where if it's done right, people are super excited for additional content. And if it's done poorly, it goes very, very bad. Do you have any plans for future support? Is this the sort of like product that you're seeing that, a year, 2 years from now, we're still going to be seeing new Stronghold Crusader 2 content?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think with a game like this, where we've got AI characters, for example, we're shipping with 8 AI characters, which allows us to make, I think it's 25 missions in the trails. I think going back to one of your earlier questions, actually, about how many maps and things we're shipping with, and I forgot to answer. Then that gives us loads of possibilities there. But obviously, if going forward, we can add in more AI characters and more skirmish trials quite easily. And our intention with it really isn't to kind of to put that out there so much as to kind of to make money from it necessarily. It's more the fact that if we put something out there, then it kind of makes it more visible again to everybody, and kind of reinvigorates the original product really more than a DLC route just to kind of wring yet more money out of Crusader. I think you kind of want to keep it fresh, because by doing that, you're keeping the game current, and you're keeping it out there in the public eye, and hopefully people that haven't played it before will buy it, because they've it's a fresh game. I think is something that people will look at, whereas in the past it's always been with box product, you kind of put one out and you get one shot at it, and then there's nothing much you can do. I mean, now you've got an opportunity to kind of keep that brand and that game alive for quite a long time. So we'll be doing lots of DLC. A lot of it will be free, and we'll also be adding in obviously free updates and extra features and things as we go along. We want to keep coding it. Hopefully it won't require any kind of big fix-ups or anything like that, but and the coding we'll be doing for it will be just adding more cool stuff, and going back to what people want with that kind of free-form co-op mode. People will let us know that it'd be great if there was a button that just stopped people from doing this, or wouldn't it be cool if we had this mode, or we might add new units and things like that. But that's the sort of thing that we'll just keep doing, because it's that's what you've got to do these days, I think, with a brand, certainly with if you want to keep it in the public eye.
No, I think that's very true. Do you have any strategy for dealing with the idea that in a multiplayer setting, like what if I have a certain DLC and my friend doesn't? Can we still play together? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, again, exactly. It starts to add complexities. I think we're kind of working through that in terms of the maps. I think that if it's there are certain things we can let you do, like for example, like I was saying before, if you've got a certain map that you want to play on, then we can kind of send that across. With the AI characters, I'm not as sure, but I think it may well be that we could kind of let you play with that. I don't think we've made a call on that yet, or I'm imagining it shouldn't be technically too hard to do, but again, it may be something that we have to support slightly afterwards. But as long as we get it in there before the DLC comes out, then I guess that's okay. But yeah, I mean, it's potentially, I guess the way around it would be to let you kind of get that transferred across. I guess you could only play if you were playing the person that had it. You can only play that AI character if you're playing with the person that had it. I'm
Right,
kind of
yeah, a
making
lot
it.
of the
I'm making
games.
this up as we go along here. So
Oh, maybe, yeah. So I don't want to, put you on the spot or make you commit to anything else. It is something that a few of the other games have done where, yeah, if the host has a DLC, then it's sort of enabled for various people.
okay.
You've brought up the AI personality a few times. So what, and in my head, it was just, oh, well, easy, medium, hard, but it sounds like there's a little bit more to them than that. What exactly are you doing with these personalities?
Well, again, we've wanted to kind of get it so that it's a little bit like playing a multiplayer game, but in the single player kind of world. So that we have these videos with them, so that they've all got different kind of emotional states where they'll be happy, they'll be angry, they'll be sad or nervous, and then we have a lot of we're slowly putting them in. They're not there. They're certainly not there in the version you've just been playing, but we've recorded a load of voiceover work for them. So there'll be taunts like I'm gonna boil your brains in your helmet, you imbecile, or they're kind of saying, could you send me some of these goods, or they'll tease you if they've destroyed buildings, or if you destroy theirs, they'll get angry. If you take their estates, they'll reply. So that it's a bit like how a human player might respond if you were kind of playing them, and you could hear what they were saying. And so they kind of so we've been doing that, and we have literally thousands of lines of that recorded in I think it's 8 languages now, and so that we've got this whole system of them kind of coming in and they appear on screen and they'll say this stuff to you, and it adds a lot. I mean, I know it's if it's done right, there's nothing quite spurs you on to wanting to go and get the rat out of his castle when he kind of arrogantly comes on and tells you what a stupid pile of rock your castle is, you peasant. It actually does work quite well for kind of going, you make you want to go and catapult his castle down. And it's a simple thing, but I think it works really nicely actually, rather than just they're an anonymous AI bot sort of thing. It gives them real personality.
Oh, maybe you should give people the ability to use those taunts in multiplayer against other players. That might be fun too.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're putting in, which is nice. We're at the point now where we're able to put that kind of polish idea in. It just, we're kind of wrapping up on all of the must work, must do stuff, and we're getting to the point now where we're putting these polished things in. Again, it'll either be there when we come out, or it'll be there as a feature update going forward. But yeah, absolutely. It's all that stuff's there. It would be shame not to kind of use it a lot. We actually, in one of them, we did have a thing called an insult engine, which allowed you in chat to kind of use the function keys to hit a bank of insults and then hit it again to hit the actual insult you want. So we'd have like modern insults, medieval insults, 1 to 12, set A, set B, and things like that. Like you scubbadullion or you nincompoop or things like that.
Oh, yeah, it's like one of those Shakespearean insult generators.
Correct,
You see
exactly. I
online,
think
yeah.
yeah, exactly. We've had one of those for a while actually. So that's the kind of thing that will be thrown in there, because that actually is a heap of fun. I've been in multiplayer games where you've got to wait 5 minutes till everyone's stopped doing it before they'll actually stop playing the game.
Well, one of the things in the past of Stronghold that's always been really strong is a lot of the voice acting with the units. And actually a lot of people, when we were leading into this demo, asked me to find out, hey, are these voices still in the game? Do people still say funny things? And certainly even in the demo that I've played, they seem to be present. So that sort of spirit of Stronghold still seems to be there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Stronghold's always had that kind of slightly, black humor, that irreverent humor, and definitely they're still there. We've added in, we've done a lot with voice acting. We've always done that right from the outset. Done a lot with voice acting and made sure it got done across a lot of languages as well. I think one of the reasons why we've been successful is we were one of the early titles that kind of supported localization into places like Germany and Poland and things where we are very big. That's kind of helped us going forward, because it's given us a much wider global appeal. But definitely, yeah, a lot of work's gone into the writing and into the voice acting for the units, for the AI characters, for the story. We've got like a whole, we haven't got the money to throw huge CG scenes in there. I mean, not many people have these days, but instead we've got the wisdom of the Shah, which is poetry. So, for example, the Shah, who's a bit of a dippy character, writes poetry. So we've got loads of stupid sayings that you between the missions that you can sit there. You know, if you've been playing like a mission say for an hour, then at the end of the day, you know, a two-line piece of poetry that makes absolutely no sense, I think most people will sit through. And he speaks it as well. So
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think this actually brings me to the end of all the questions that I had. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to put out there to people about Stronghold Crusader.
No, I mean, I think, you know, it's only to say I think that actually we're extremely pleased with where it's at. I mean, you know, what we wanted to do with Crusader was not to kind of duff it up, you know, to make sure that it came out in really good state, so that, you know, people can go, look, it's not Stronghold 3, it's you know, an accomplished game, but mainly to kind of make sure that it felt like Crusader 2. And, you know, we've been playing multiplayer, and we're getting that same vibe we had, you know, all those years ago. It does feel like Crusader, so that's making us happy. You know, even if it's only us that ever plays it, at least we're happy.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. The demos whet my appetite by itself, and I'm really looking forward to the bigger maps and actually fighting a lot of AIs at the same time, especially with some buddies on the side. Seems like a great way to spend an afternoon.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for your time as well, Simon, and well, we'll have to see what happens when it comes out.
Indeed, I think it's out September the 2nd.
All right, and that'll be available on Steam and anywhere else?
Indeed, yeah, Steam, obviously, and it'll be out in boxes as well. So I know we're working with a lot of distributors, not ourselves, but via a single, you know, a UK distributor, set up lots of global stuff. So it'll be in Canada, it'll be in the US, it'll be all over the world in boxes, and on other online sites as well.
All right, well, good stuff. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment. Did you know I read every single comment someone leaves on my video? That's insane. Why would I do that? I don't know, but I'll read yours.